So, yeah, first thing, man, I guess getting the ball rolling here. If you just want to tell us how you got on the path of the Ascend podcast, why you decided to start it, and anything else about your journey so far, and then we can get into it.
Sweet, no worries. So um, so basically, I think I'm still trying to figure that out. I think that's what we're all trying to like do is trying to figure out, who we are, what we are, what's the nature of this place, and I'm not sure. I'm still not satisfied with that answer right now. I'm still trying to dive into it every single day. I'm questioning myself every single thing that I do. I'm questioning myself. I'm always changing my mind. I'm always humble in what I believe and what I know. I'm always open to deeper truths. And I think that's what we should all be, So really I would say that, I've never kind of, I'm at the point now where I've got to, by just being open and humble to deeper truths. But as I'm growing, that's continuously keep expanding again and again. And for example, like where I am now, I know for a fact in a few days' time or a few months' time, I'm going to be somewhere completely different. And I
Mm-hmm.
think that we should always be open to be able to be free to do that, because especially we're living in a world now where it's very hard to do so. It's very hard to fully be authentically be yourself, where truth's being censored. Um, where even for example, we live in a world where it's there's a lot of like social and economical and psychological pressures put on many different people to be and look and act a certain way instead of authentically just stepping into who you are is your true self. But we're obviously
Yeah.
we're all finding our way to that.
Mm-hmm. So that's pretty much an expansion on your way to your true self, like your online, your content, your work on doing this whole thing is an expansion of your own self-realization.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't know if you were meaning this by what you said there, but what come to my mind there was like, were you asking us like kind of like is the person I am now kind of the same person who I'm on a podcast kind of thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is. I mean, that's come with a lot of challenges, to be that, to fully to walk the path. Like you've got to like when you truly walk the path, it comes with a lot of challenges. Like for example, in the old job I was in, I was speaking on a podcast and speaking about deeper truths, and then I'm working a 9 to 5 job, for example, and then I'm getting kind of combated with a lot of negativity by co-workers, by certain managerial people in managerial positions, people challenging us on my position,
Yeah.
especially with what's just currently going on in the world. I think it gets to a point. What I've found is that when you first start your spiritual journey and you start waking up to your true self, like you kind of starting to like tentatively play with that feeling of like who you are. Like you kind of just like
Mm.
it's kind of like the only way I can describe it is like kind of like a kaleidoscope where it's like a kaleidoscope of your own consciousness. Have you ever seen a kaleidoscope where you've got to like
Yeah.
look through a kaleidoscope and you kind of like moving forward and backward and continuously like
Mm-hmm.
becoming something else and then kind of retracting back to maybe what society wants you to be or what your family wants you to be or your friends want you to be, and you just continuously kind of keep moving forward and back until you find that edge and you meet your true self. But I find that once you truly meet your true self and you do walk that path of like divine truth, if you want to call it that, like true truth, and you step into it, it gets to a point where you can no longer play multiple roles. You can't just be
Yeah.
kind of like the podcaster anymore. You can't be the guy who just works 9 to 5. It gets to a point where eventually you just start embodying who you truly are at all times. And you'll start finding that when you start embodying that, you'll start realizing how people will fall away from you very fast. Some of your best friends will leave you, like a lot of my best friends have moved away from us, ex relationships, family members. But at the same time, as you change that law of attraction through you kind of stepping into who you truly are, lots of different new opportunities start turning up for you. And I think that's the beauty of like the path of, spirituality or awakening, whatever you want to call it. It's like a journey of, rediscovering and finding who you truly are. But at the same time, you kind of like activating like new parts of reality to some degree that are kind of coming towards you.
Mm-hmm. Well said, man. Yeah. I like how you said rediscovering, not discovering, you're rediscovering who you are. It's almost like we
Yeah.
know deep down, and we've always known this capital T truth that's inside of us, but we have to fight through our conditionings, that we've been conditioned with since birth. I don't know,
Yeah, for sure.
pretty much. And it's a process for sure, but once you get the glimpse of that capital T truth that's inside of you, you never really let it go. At least for me, like there's always that yearning. And yeah, you're gonna probably lose people, man. You're probably gonna, change your situation in life, your surroundings. But it's worth it because, like we said in the beginning, man, if you're okay with change, that's what it's all about. You have to be okay with not being the same person, or potentially not being the same person or in the same situation in X amount of weeks or X amount of months or years, and just be okay with that. Because I think the current paradigm right now in our world is we don't want change, and that's kind of what's going on right now, is a huge change in such a short amount of time, and it's causing so much inertia in our society. And I just think a lot of people can't handle it because change is it's not like, I don't know, for some reason the human mind, we just like stability, like a sense of stability, some kind of narrative that we build around our life, like this is who I am, these are my friends, this is me doing me, living my life in this story. But once you start to realize what you truly are deep down, that story doesn't make any sense. It just falls apart. The egotistical narrative that we've been built up with our whole life, it's just, you realize like, oh, you see right through all that stuff and it's just noise. And the path of self-realization is kind of, for me, speaking from personal experience, I feel like that's the only reason why we're here, or at least one of the biggest reasons why we're here, is to realize, incarnate here, forget what we are, and then remember what we truly are, and from there, chop wood and carry water. um, it's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful process to be a part of, man, and to connect with people like you that are on the same wavelength.
Yeah, for sure. I've been starting. I guess, I don't know if you want to say something there, but I just wanted to add something there because,
Hmm.
like that journey of self discovery, it's something that I've been kind of, I've been unraveling so many deep truths lately in my journey. Like I've got to a point where, especially with the awakening, where I got to a point where I kind of thought like I knew everything. Like not thought I knew everything because I've always been humble, but got to a point in the journey where I thought, this is a kind of like, I know a lot here. I'm very advanced, and then sure enough, like, the law of attraction brings in something in your life that expands you again,
Hmm.
and kind of cracks you open to some degree, because we're constantly always walking through life, and something I've found that the more kind of, I don't even like using the word advanced because I don't even know if that's the right word, but I don't even know what, I'm just kind of using that for language. But the more you kind of walk the path and you start kind of getting to know yourself more and you're activating yourself, I find that you just constantly keep getting cracked open again and again and again, and I'm at this point now where I mean, it's scary to some degree doing this. Like, I'm going to be honest, there's still a lot of fear within me because some of the things that I've been stepping into have been huge. But
Hmm.
like when you kind of like walk that path, the more that you get cracked open, at first it can look very scary, like it could even just be in the form of depression for someone, or it could be in the form of having a bad day or whatever it may be. And it can go even more to a greater extent in the terms of like a spiritual attack, for example. And as you kind of start, the more that you walk through these doors and you're open to whatever the universe is going to give you, you start realizing what they truly are and why we're truly here. And what I believe is that one of the reasons, a truth that I've stepped into is that the reason, when you were saying like the reason why we're here for, and one of the biggest reasons is because, we're here to kind of, um, you know, heal our emotional wounds and find our way back to God. If you want to use that word, I know a lot of people don't like the word God. You can call it universe, whatever you want, but we're walking that path back towards God. Ultimately.
Hmm. We're all walking each other home, as Ram Dass says.
Yeah, I love that quote.
That's kind of what we're doing, man. We're all going back home. You can say God, home, source, the light, whatever you want to call it. But there's some kind of, like I said before, there's some kind of yearning for something else. Like it's like we're far away from. It seems like we're far away from what we truly are deep down. Like we're on vacation right now, or just suffering from a little amnesia. Like there's something a little different, but I know that there's light at the end of the tunnel. At least that's just some kind of intuitive sense that I have.
Yeah, for sure.
How'd you get started on this whole thing, this whole wavelength? I like to get people's stories on like how they get on this whole path. So like, how did this begin for you? Was this some kind of catalyst event, or just like a gradual thing?
Yeah, for me, I mean, like I always say that we're always waking up, you know. So like we're always kind of, you know, finding out who we are. So we always have these kind of like in our lives, you know, something traumatic might happen to wake you up, for example. And it kind of like, you know, many people have different ways to this. But I think like for me, I can only speak from my journey. I can't kind of speak for anyone else. But for me, I've always felt that yearning inside for something like deeper, you know. Like, I don't know what you would call it, but well, now I know what you'd call it, but in the past I didn't. You know, I can just remember. You know, I can even remember like when I was a young child having like experiences of like you know, remote viewing, which I know are remote viewing now, having out of body experiences. Now I know the out of body experience I didn't at the time. Having night tremors, you know, like you know, it sounds crazy, but like meeting entities, like when I was
Mm-hmm.
younger, you know, like it goes so deep, you know, like just so many different encounters now. Now I can kind of look back in my life and make sense of it all. But I think, you know, I think we all have that within us, you know, like every single person on this planet is a soul, you know, like they're their own individual soul. And we all have that kind of like, you know, divine spark or something within us that is trying to nudge us to the other side, if that makes sense. You know, trying to, as I said before, trying to sort of, you know, remind us again and return us to that place where we've always knew, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like for me, it's just been a gradual process of kind of, you know, kind of every single day knocking that door down, you know, kind of like, you know, doing the internal work, but at the same time, like understanding like what this place is, like using the physical world. For example, like when I was in my 9 to 5 job, you know, it was as challenging it is when you start waking up and you go to a 9 to 5 job and you've got kind of like people turning up to you, like triggering you and saying certain things to you, but just kind of like knowing that every single day is that kind of, you know, is the universe is turning up for you to learn from that. So
Yeah.
for me, like my awakening is always going on. You know, there was never one pivotal point where it was like, this is it, I know it all now. It was just kind of continual, you know.
Mm. Yeah, and it never ends too.
Yeah.
Hmm.
That's why I'm also interested as well. Sorry, man. I was going to say I'm also interested as well. Like, this is why I'm interested with this conversation because I'm always aware, like, what's going to turn up, you know?
Yeah, exactly. It's cool to be able to like this is kind of meta, but having this kind of conversation, it's like a meditation. That's what I realized about having long form conversations. It is a meditation in a way, and it's actually fun. Like I enjoy just disconnecting from technology, from anything else in my world, and just completely being with you or with anybody else in the moment. It's something special, you know, even if you're not recording them and putting them on YouTube. It's I encourage everybody to try it and just really be with somebody, right? It's actually something difficult, I feel like, in today's world to just truly be there with somebody and hold space for somebody. That's not something we do. We're just addicted to like, you know, TikTok videos, quick gratification. But actually just connecting with somebody, like truly, you know, diving into ourselves and creating one mind together, it's
Mm.
something it's something special, man. And I just see it as like, you know, like we said before, like you said, it's another avenue of a spiritual practice to be able to create this space together, man. It's pretty cool. It really
There's
is.
even, sorry, I was going to say as well, when you mentioned that, it's interesting because I kind of, when I used to do podcasts as well, like I don't do them in person anymore now, I just do them by myself. But when
Mm-hmm.
I used to do them in person a lot of the time, there's something even, you know, there's another window that can be activated. That's through like in-person podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of the times, you know, we communication isn't, you know, as you said before, we're very much distracted. We can't even hold down a conversation. But communication isn't just language. It isn't just like your voice. You know, communication is things underneath the unconscious that we can't fully tap into. And
Yeah.
there's a lots of different senses that are being activated and things that are moving in the physical and the metaphysical when you're one on one with someone that we don't even understand yet, you know. And I think when you're in them spaces, that's why I feel like um, I think that's why over the last few years there's been a huge kind of attack on that energy, you know, like trying to make you scared of one another because
Mm.
I think we all know that there's something beautiful happens when you do, especially when you get together with like-minded people and you're in a room, you know,
Yeah.
energies can change. But if you are like in a more intimate one-on-one, for example, when you're doing a podcast with someone and you're facing them, you're staring them in the eyes, there's no like, you can't bullshit to someone, like,
Yeah.
because you can read them when you're in person with someone, you can read when you're bullshitting, like someone can write a tweet or an Instagram post and they can be full of shit, but
Hmm.
when you're one-on-one with someone and you're staring them dead in the eyes, you can read the body language, you can tell, are they someone that's full of shit,
Yeah.
so it's like, so all these different elements to being one-on-one is there's something special to that as well.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, true connection, man. That's something that I think the world is lacking. And like you said, I do blame the media, powers that be, man. They don't want us united
Yeah, for
because
sure.
the fact of the matter is we hold so much power. Every single individual holds so much power to be able to make real change in this world. So if we all came together with the same goal, with the same manifestation, we all came together with the same intention, I guess, behind what we wanted to do, we could change this world like that. But the people in power, maybe it's the Illuminati, maybe it's the cabal, maybe it's whatever you want to call it, the powers that be that are kind of behind the scenes pulling the puppet strings, they don't want us doing that because then they lose their power. So yes, we're constantly caught in this fear cycle that separates us and makes us look different from each other, and makes us fear each other, and that makes it so we can't truly manifest and be the species that we were supposed to be. um, yeah, there's something special about truly connecting, man, and I think that's the future. Like, we're building these small communities through the internet. Like, we're building these like small sanghas, communes, whatever you want to call them, through the internet of like-minded people. And even though we're not connected through locality, we're connected through space and time, through a certain kind of mindset and a certain kind of like wavelength that transcends locality. It's pretty trippy when you actually think about it. But I think that's where the future is going, and I think that's how we truly change the world: is finding community, finding like-minded individuals that are on the same wavelength, the wavelength of love, God, doing the right thing, being a good person. It's not that hard, and that's how we truly make change. Because there's if the law of attraction manifestation thing is true, and you just gotta like get yourself on a certain wavelength, meditate on a certain intention, and manifestations happen. If you do that with X amount of people, let's say 100 people or 1,000 people or 100,000 people or 7 billion people, all on the same wavelength, there's so much power in being able to just like reverberate at that kind of change frequency. And I think you can actually make things happen like that, to actually, there's power in numbers when it comes to change. One person definitely has a lot of power, but when you can actually and fully authentically get on the same wavelength, it's definitely something special. But when you can do it, I think you can truly make change, man. And that's how change happens with humanity. It's just like, especially when you're aligned with God. You know
No,
what
for
I
sure.
mean? When you're aligned, I think that's the next paradigm that we're moving toward. It's a humanity slowly all being aligned on the same wavelength, and it's the wavelength of love. It's the wavelength of God and
Yeah.
compassion. And it sounds corny and it sounds unrealistic, living in such a fearful world, and the illusion of Maya is very thick right now, right? It doesn't even seem possible. How are we all going to get on that wavelength? We're almost going to war right now. At least that's what the narrative wants us to believe.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's possible, man. And I think that's actually happening. Like that yearning that we talked about at the beginning of the podcast, that yearning is for me to change myself, but also for everyone else to change, so that we can truly create a better, more harmonious world that doesn't have to deal with these lower energies of ego, competition, envy, jealousy, power. Like things like that won't even matter. And that's because all of us are getting on that same wavelength. It's true, man. And it's getting harder to resist.
Yeah, you're right.
Every day that goes by, it's getting harder to doubt the higher power, the higher frequency that's here. It's always been here. It always will be here. It's getting hard to doubt it, man. The deeper you go
Yeah.
into yourself, yeah, man. I don't know what else to say after that.
Yeah, no, no, beautifully well put. Because it is. Because when it's hard to explain. But I always sometimes say, like, when you know, like when you tap into
Hmm.
that, that feeling, it's it's hard to explain, but it's the only way I can describe it is like, like when you get that feeling of like, when you cross over, when you take psychedelics or something, and you get that feeling of connection.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like that, it eventually that feeling that you can achieve, through ordinary states, but you can also achieve through psychedelics. You can also get to a point in your life where you can be connected to that at all times, like you can
Yeah.
call it source, God, whatever you want to call it, but it's there for you at all times. You just have to kind of, have the openness to it first of all, but also as well, like start, forming a connection with it. If you want to call it God, start forming a connection with God in your own life. And that's one thing that on my journey I've massively started to do is like, I've started to work on myself. And as you were saying before, how it changed the world, it's like, you start changing the world by working on your own emotional wounds, and then it's through your emotional wounds that actually affects your law of attraction. Because a lot of people, like one of the truths that I've come into is that, like when people talk about kind of like the law of attraction, and like it's kind of like you just whatever you think of will kind of turn up for you, and that is true to some degree. Things do turn up for you. But what I've massively found is that I've noticed that when I say, for example, I've noticed in my life how some emotional wounds that I have are manifesting in the physical world. So for example, say if I've got like a wound around aggression, for example, so throughout my whole life, one of my wounds is that I've been aggressive quite a lot of the times. So for example, I started noticing how patterns linked to that behavior were starting to turn up. So for example, I'd be driving down the road and someone would, like the universe or God would turn up in a physical way to kind of test us. Like, so the guy would get angry at us for no reason, or I would even maybe walking down the street and some guy would just be swearing at us. Some drunk guy would be shouting. It
Mm-hmm.
could be like a dog was barking at us and getting aggressive at us. And what I started noticing is the more that you start facing your own like emotional wounds, you actually start affecting that law of attraction. So you actually create space for a greater law of attraction to come into play. And what I've found over the last few months is that, over the last few months, I've been moving into some really exciting stuff in terms of in terms of the metaphysical and also the physical as well, because they're both the same, And what I've noticed massively, every single time I'm about to embark on something massive in my life, where whatever it may be, like I'm about to take on a new chapter in my life, before I kind of get the right to do that, I find myself like I'll be sitting in my room crying, like I'll be going for a walk, I'll be releasing, So I find that every single time that we are about to move into something new, there's always a block or an emotional wound that we have to heal before we get the right to move into that space.
Mm.
And that's one thing I've been finding out anyway in my journey
Mm.
a lot.
Yeah. Mm. I like what you say with the physical world just like being a byproduct of these healing, this manifestation, because it's just a reflection. So what do you think is happening right now in the physical world of the collective? Or is this just a giant healing process, or are we just growing up, metamorphosizing into something?
Yeah, it's deep. It's deep. I think about that every single day. I'm not 100% sure because I think I'm interested in ancient cultures of the past, like the Mayans and the Egyptians and stuff, and they were aware of like these cycles of consciousness that ebb and flow throughout humanity and affect human consciousness. Like the precession of the equinox. The 24,000-year cycles that basically affect humanity's consciousness. And that's like obviously evident to see that is kind of what we're in, we're in some kind of like collective cycle where we kind of forget who we are, then we remember again, like we kind of have a fall of consciousness where we kind of, we're in the lower ages where we're kind of acting out more from sin. And then we kind of go through these 24,000-year cycles where we remember again and we kind of, connect back to source, connect back to God and remember who we are. But I think as well, it's like it's down. It also like besides that as well, what I've come to terms with is like, especially with everything that's going on right now in the world, I feel like we've got to this point as a humanity where for so long we've been running away from our shadow. Like we've been running away from, our these deeper things, basically these deeper shadows that's within us all. And collectively now they're starting to come to the surface, like I'm not going to obviously go into them all, but we can all see like in the world now how right now so many people are having to face like their shadow and their emotions on so many different levels, like the window that we just gone through before, where people like, some people couldn't even go out the houses, where they were just sitting with themselves. It seems like whatever's going on right now, it's happening the way was meant to happen. That's
Yeah.
where I feel, and that's how I feel anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know what you mean. If you're tapped in, you'll know what you're talking about because
Yeah,
it seems it doesn't seem right. Like you mean this whole pandemic thing was supposed to
yeah,
happen? This was supposed to happen? Like, yeah, this was all part of the plan. This is part of the healing process. It doesn't
for sure.
seem, maybe in a few years it'll make sense. Maybe, down the line we'll see how it all lined up to be a healing process. But as we're going through it at this time, it doesn't seem like it. But if you're tapped in, man, like there's
Yeah.
just like there's a higher guidance to all of this.
I
There's
think
something
also,
else. Go ahead.
yeah, sorry, man. I was going to say as well. I think on a physical, I just didn't want to forget this, but I think on a physical level as well, like it's kind of like there is more people now who are tapped in and know what's going on. More people are kind of
For sure.
starting to now move their lives in a different direction. Like even for example, even in my own life, I thought I was completely tapped in, but it's still triggered something within me. So even people who you'd this is not the right term, but I'm just using this as language, but people who you'd class as like quote unquote spiritual masters, or like, even though I don't believe there's any spiritual masters, but what I mean is like people who were tapped in and dialed in, even them are getting challenged on who they thought they were, and who and
Mm,
what they thought they were doing. Because in my life, I was on a trajectory of like, for example, I was on a trajectory, I was going to be going traveling around the world, and this come along and it made me reassess and value where I should be placing my energy. Like I now know that I should be placing my energy and going off grid, so I'm not dependent on the beast. I'm not dependent on Babylon anymore. So, and then obviously that helps my spirituality too, because I'm eating cleaner foods. I'm in a safer and cleaner environment. I'm not having to like work for the man all the time. I'm more easy to serve. So
mm.
I think even like some of everyone, no matter, like no one's like out of this picture, no matter where you are on the journey, everyone's had to like everyone's over the last 2 years has been facing something within them.
Yeah. And I think that's what's going to be happening in the future is we're going to be less dependent on the machine, and we're going to create our own sovereign, smaller societies. But that might be a little scary to the powers that
Sure.
be. But I think it's happening just naturally.
Like I say, I think sometimes as well, what I've started to understand is that it's like sometimes, because how a truth that I've come into is like, how sometimes when we like look at these, like, the governments of the world and stuff, and like, for example, right now, like a lot of people are kind of protesting to the governments around the world for like, like they're basically begging for someone else to do it for you, but really that option for us to take our own sovereignty has always been there. We've always, even with everything that's going on right now, you can still you can still physically move yourself away from from what the world that they want. You can start, if they tell you to like lock down, you do the opposite. You start actually getting closer to your family. You start having conversations with them. No one's physically stopping you from doing anything. It's like the illusion of it, like the Maya. The word Maya means illusion. It's like this whole illusion that's going on. It's kind of like it's testing you to see how much you are switched on to some degree. Like it wants
Yeah.
to test you. Are you like kind of going to fall into the traps? Are you going to continue to fall into the spells? Are you going to actually realize you had the power all along, and you can actually do whatever you want?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Every day's a test, man. That's another
Yeah.
thing too that comes along. It never ends. And once you think you got it figured out, like this is who I am for sure, then yep, the universe throws you something, a curveball that you weren't expecting. And boom, oh, that's not who I am. I don't know what's going on. What is this? And then it's not gonna get any less crazy either. It's not. I don't think the test ever truly ends. We don't. It's just a continual test of our will to reside at that level of mind. But it's that's the flow. It's like it's a constant return. I think that's okay. Like we're supposed to forget almost. I think enlightenment is like it's not just all of a sudden that's it. It's like it's a gradual process. It's every day. Like you
Mm.
can become enlightened every day because every day is going to be a new opportunity for that. And I think that itself is that's a great mindset. It's a great ideal to be on, to go with the flow. Know that like don't even become It's the idea of like not being attached to being unattached, you know? Because that's what all enlightenment is about, right? To sum it up is to not be attached to anything, to the change in our world. So if you, I feel like the biggest trap is spirituality. Like that's the last one you have to get over, to say I am a holy man. I'm a spiritual person. Look at me. Look at how pure I am. That's just another trap. That's just another thing you have to get over, man. That's like the biggest thing you have to get, the spiritual ego. That's kind of, it's really strange. It's just another form of dogma. But yeah, I
Yeah.
like what you said. Like that's actually happening to people. Even if you think you got it figured out, that you are some kind of guru, it's nah, man. That's just another trap. That's just another thing we have to get over. Um,
I was going to say as well,
yeah.
I was going to say that I've found that what I've actually found is, like you said, I completely agree with you. I've found that the more I actually, go down the path of spirituality, the more I kind of like, quote unquote, kind of from the outside to someone else. And, I might look advanced, for example, from the outside physically, but the more I've kind of like get to know myself more, I actually realize that I'm actually more fucked up.
Exactly. Yeah, seriously. The deeper you go, the more you're like, what? I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah.
But that's okay. That's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
We're humans. That's the thing, is we are these divine beings that are angelic like. We have these CDs, these powers, these psychic powers, and we go to layers deeper than the physical vessel, right? We're that part of us, but then the other part of us is also, yes, we're an animalistic, we're an animal. We're still animals. We're
Yeah.
just monkeys that talk. And it's the balance between those two forces that I think is what really forms spirituality. It's not like getting lost too much in the holy ideals of what our being is. And it's also not getting lost in the lower energies, the lower chakras of what our being is. And it's finding the balance in the heart center, literally in our being. It's the center. It's the balance between the two chakra points, or the two halves, and finding a balance in our heart. And we act out of the heart. We act out of love. And that's what it's all about, man. It's life is a continual test for us to balance ourselves, through our practices, through yoga, meditation, whatever it is, music, however you tune in, to balance ourselves, to tune in to the heart and act out of the heart. And from there, that's when life becomes a little bit easier, like to um to see through the illusion of who you think you are every day. And you're not an animal. You're also not just an angelic being, spiritual being. You're something else. You're just like an act. Like I see myself, right, as I go deeper into this. I have no idea who I am, what this is, what this vessel is, but I see myself just as an action, just like part of the process. You know what I mean? Like I'm not anything. I'm just being, I'm just doing, I'm just here. And from being, as I'm here with you, and I'm here with whoever's listening. And that's what's happening. That's who I am. Like I'm starting to find out like there is no identification process. It's just like an identification of the actions that I do here. How I serve out of the heart. Hard to explain. I don't know if I made any sense there, but it's like the more I dive deep, I have no idea what I am. I have no idea what's going on here, but I do know that there's something going on here, and we can affect what's going on here. And that's it. There's a happening, but you can affect the happening
Yeah.
through that love frequency.
Yeah, I get you. I was going to say as well, no, that's really well put. And I was going to say, one of the things that I've started to come to terms with, to kind of, because I do believe that within us there is a compass, like there is something within us that is guiding us at the same time to kind of give us that what's the word I'm looking for, to kind of give us that anchor, if that's the right word. There is
Hmm.
something within us all that's giving us that anchor. And what I've found is that the more you kind of, because for example, like when you walk through life, and say for example, just an example, like say you treat someone badly or something,
Hmm.
like in the physical world that we're in now, you don't get to kind of, sometimes you don't get the, if you're very early in your journey, you don't get to feel like the repercussions of that instantaneously. So for example, like you can go down the street and you can do something really nasty to someone, you know, and you're not going to really feel the repercussions of it instantaneously. Like people can be numb to the sensations of what's going on deeper within. But
Yep.
as you kind of start evolving yourself, you get more sensitive to that anger that's within us all.
Yeah.
And I've found a lot of times where, like now, for example, say if I am in an emotionally charged environment and something gets triggered and I do act in the wrong manner or do act in the wrong way, I find like actually my soul inside actually tells me now, like when I'm doing that, like instantaneously, you know. Whereas in the
Hmm.
past, it used to be kind of, it might have been, for example, I might have even had to take 2 years down the line, then took psychedelics, then the psychedelics would have told us through a vision that, remember when you did this, you told this to this person.
Hmm.
But now, as I've developed it, as now instantaneously, if I kind of carry out an act in the moment, I feel it in my body, you know, straight away. Like I feel it. So there is like an anger, if you want to call it that. There is like our soul in us has the intelligence. We just have to kind of build that. We have to, you know, form the connection to it, and you become more and more sensitive, and you know when you're doing acts that are wrong, you know, and that's when you can kind of align to that truth.
Yeah. It's pretty powerful. It really is, man. It's almost like it's intuitive and it's I don't know if that's the right word, but it's intuitive intelligence,
Yeah, definitely.
intuitive guidance, like just something where you know is is right or wrong. Like you know,
It's feeling.
yeah, it's feeling. You can't explain it, man, and it's beautiful to be able to know that there's some kind of guidance that we can all tap into for sure. And it sounds crazy to somebody that probably has no idea what we're talking about. They're like, "What the? These
Yeah.
guys are really far out." But it's true, man.
We can
It's
go
really
further. I'm saying we can go further if you want.
yeah. Let's do it. Let's get deep. Yeah, man. Um, it's there for sure. It's something. It's a happening. That's all I know. It's something's happening, and you can tune in to aid the flow. You can aid the process of what's happening here in this life, in this incarnation. It all comes from the heart, man. It all comes from love.
For sure. When to go super deep, if you want to go super deep, when you were
Let's
saying
do it.
something before about
Hmm.
when you're talking about balance, like trying to connect to that balance, something that I've actually started to understand, like, is and this might sound like I said before, this might sound so far out there for some people, but just like in we have like so within our human bodies now, we have like the two hemispheres. You have the left and the right hemisphere that you can connect to. You know, like the left hemisphere is linked to the feminine aspects of yourself, and the right hemisphere is linked to the masculine side of yourself. And the more that you kind of in your life, the more that you start understanding how these energies need to be balanced, you know, and how they kind of can come up in the form of how emotions are linked to these hemispheres, how even physical diseases, physical things in your body are linked to them. To go even deeper, what I've started to realize is that, you know, you can call it, I'm going to call it God because that's what I call it, but you can call it universe or divine intelligence, whatever you want to call it. But the divine intelligence, universe, or God in the world also has two different left and right hemisphere in itself as well. So you
Hmm.
can actually connect to God, and you can, when you connect to God, you can actually feel when God's speaking to you through the left or through the right hemisphere, you know,
Wow.
which is
Yeah.
mad when you connect to it.
Yeah. So you're connecting on a level of if this is masculine energy or feminine energy.
Yeah.
How would you describe the difference between masculine and feminine? And just I don't know, just putting it simply, I guess, because that is obviously that's a pretty deep question in itself. But what is masculine and femininity to you? Like divine masculinity or
Yeah.
femininity?
So for me, I'm still learning it. I'm still understanding it because I still don't fully understand it within inside myself. You know, I'm still working my way to that now. But
Hmm.
there is the only thing I can say to you is because I don't think words do it justice. You know,
Yeah.
you can't intellectualize the divine and the feminine within inside yourself. You have to kind of feel it for yourself. You know, and
Hmm.
it's like, as I said, I'm still working back to my own, because we all have an individual divine and feminine within us. You know, we all, even though like the divine and feminine principles are kind of universal of like understanding that, you know, what we know what masculine, more like dominant masculinity is, and we also know what more dominant feminine, like femininity is. But at the same time, even with that said, in with each of us, all we all have kind of varied what's the word I'm looking for? We all have differences in our own divine feminine and masculine within inside of ourselves. It's also linked to like our twin flame as well. Like, not to go off topic, but we all know that there is like another other half of us out there. Like if you tune into it and you tune into your heart space, you all know that there is someone else out there who is similar to you, like very, very similar.
Yeah.
That's the nature of the universe. Everything comes in twos,
Mm.
and like think about it, everything comes in twos.
Mm-hmm. Damn. There's hope for everybody.
Yeah, I don't know if you're going to say something there, but what I was going to say is, I was trying to let you jump in there. I don't know if you're going to say something, but
Good.
that's sometimes with Zoom, it's like kind of a little bit delayed.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say again, yeah. So I was going to say, if we all tune in, you can all feel like within inside yourself that there is another half of you out there, kind of thing,
Mm.
And if you tune in your own self now, and like say for example, someone's out there now, and you tune in your own self, like ask yourself the question, like when you tune into your own in your own being, like do you feel right now that you are the more feminine side of your twin flame, or are you the more masculine?
Yeah. Yeah. So like, even if you're a man too, you could be feminine. And if you're a
Yeah,
woman, you can be the masculine side. But you're saying
definitely.
there's predominantly these like two energies that are kind of dancing back and forth.
Yeah.
Mm. That's interesting, man.
Because what I found as well, like when it comes to, I know like twin flames are kind of like a term that's brushed around within the spirituality community. It's like, oh, this is my twin flame. This is my twin flame, for example.
Mm.
But when you get to a point in your journey where you start healing your emotional wounds, you will find that you will meet your twin flame, whether you're ready or not for her, or she, or ready for him, whatever, you know, you will come across, you might not even, your wounds might come up where you might not even be able to, you might have so many wounds that you can't even meet them, you can't even see them,
Yeah.
you can't even feel into them. But, and that's how a lot of times, these like relationships that do come up where, because we're all like you said before, we're all animals, like we all have them tendencies where you want to find a partner, you want to kind of find someone who you can bounce ideas off and stuff. But a lot of the time, our emotional wounds are preventing us to these deeper truths, Like a lot of esoteric teachings in the past talked about how the only way to true ascension, like to true complete ascension, is you have to meet your twin flame on the physical plane,
Really?
you,
Where's that described?
a lot of what so it comes from I can't pronounce his name now. So there's a guy who wrote a book called Man-Made Flesh, called he was a guy who was like really deep into astrology and stuff, and like he was like studying the work of the ancients. But it's like it's a common theme of like all cultures of the past, that they believe that in the earth plane, for you to ascend to the highest level, don't get us wrong, you can still ascend, but for you to ascend to the highest level, you have to meet your twin flame, because your twin flame has had experiences on the earth plane that you can't have, because we can't have all experiences, we can't like have, I'm having my experience, so my twin flame's having the other experience. And when you meet and you come together, you have complementing traits that help each other ascend to the next level.
I see.
And that's what I've found in my personal journey, like, for example, like, I've met my twin flame, and it's challenging, like you really challenge each other, like on so many different aspects. But you find that one of the fundamental things that I've come to touch with is that when you start healing yourself, you will eventually meet that twin flame on this physical plane.
Wow, that's
And
powerful.
you'll help each other ascend together,
Yeah, and you almost form one being together.
Yeah, definitely.
That's powerful, man, right there. How did you know it was her?
You just know.
Yeah, just like all right, so I mean, we don't have to get too much into it, but the first time you met her, did you just kind of like felt something?
It wasn't even, I didn't even have to meet her to know.
Oh wow, that's okay.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah, it's deep, it's like, it's you feel it, it's like, it's hard to explain, but it's, I'm never going to do it justice with language, but like when you find that thing, you just know, it's just, the only way I can describe it is like very subtly, even though it's a lot deeper than this, is like, when you get that feeling in life that that this is the right thing you should be doing, and you truly get that feeling, you feel it through every single cell in your body. That's the only way I can describe it, even though it's a lot more deeper than that. The communication's like, it's a lot more deeper than the physical, you're getting like, you're connecting to that core of who you are, you feel it,
Yeah, man. That's powerful. Yeah, words don't do justice to love.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, man, it's just a dance between polarities. Like this whole thing is a dance between polarities, masculine, feminine, on, off, dark, light. It's just a dance between the two poles, the relativity between the two. But you have to know one pole to know the other. You can't have the light without the dark. You can't have the
Sure.
masculine without the feminine. And it's about the balance. That's why yin and yang is so poignant, because that is the world. It's this dance, this flow between two energies, and it never stops. Damn, that's powerful. I don't know. I don't even know what to say. Yeah. So it's like as above, so below too. Like that dance is represented at every point of this world, in our being, in the physical world, in relationships, in the atomic world. I think in the astronomical world, it's all the same process. It's the dance between on and off, zero one, birth and death. That's the biggest one. Is birth and death.
Yeah,
You
sure.
can't have life without dying. And that's another thing I realized on this path, is like it's part of the plan. It makes me, I guess, fear death a little less. Not saying I'm 100% fearless of it, but I can kind of get to understand and almost form a relationship with my own demise, and realize that that's how it's meant to be. We're not meant to be here forever, at least in these bodies. We're meant to be here just as like a temporary dream. And the dance of life and death is the dance of just becoming anew, man. Like to finding out what you really are,
No, for sure.
man.
Yeah, for sure. No, for sure. I mean, that's one of the things like I feel like that's one of the fundamental characteristics of this reality is it has like these kind of foundations built within it so that you do get tested and stretched to some degree. Like we all have to go through that aging process, and like when you go through
Mm-hmm.
the aging process, you're faced with many different feelings, like along the physical life, like girls do that, men do that. So the way that the physical reality is set up in some way, it is like set up in a way for you to kind of face certain aspects of yourself and surrender and let go of the ego and let go of like certain aspects that you kind of attach yourself to. It's like and obviously death's the biggest one of them. Like you're gonna be have to let go of everything that you've known for like this all these years.
Everything. Yeah, that's the biggest one. That's why I think meditation and even the whole idea of Buddhism is a preparation for that. Like it's almost like it's an entire life. Like the monastic life is an entire life devoted to the preparation to, the ending change. The demise of this body, the inevitable demise. And once you can fully digest the inevitable demise, then you can truly start to live. That's the ironic thing. Like once you start to really fathom, like, whoa, I'm gonna lose everything someday. Like none of this really means much. This is all just some temporary, fleeting experience. For me, at least, that grants me some kind of sense of freedom. It's like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna just live this life, live this dream to the fullest, do the best while I'm here. Give back a little bit while I'm here in this realm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it actually
That's
makes you a better person, I feel like.
yeah. No, definitely. And I think that's why sometimes what we're seeing unfold right now on the planet, like we're meeting the question of death right now with everything
Yeah.
that's going on with the pandemic, like
Mm-hmm.
everything that's going on with that right now. It's like people are facing that question, because a lot of the people who are scared and a lot of people who have been scared over the last couple of years are the people who are rooted in them base root fears, like people who haven't asked the question of death, what happens when we leave this place? They believe that we're just these little meat suits and that this is all that there is, and we're like keep you locked in these little scared bodies.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of the people who have met these questions are the people who realize like what this truly is, and the people who aren't scared of death to some degree of what's going on right now.
Yeah, exactly. It's a test. It's just a test. Another huge test. Yeah, man. And that's a big thing why I do what I do, because it's like I know I'm not going to change anybody's mind by just having these conversations, but at least I can point people in the direction of finding this out within yourself, that we don't quite die per se. Like we do in these physical vessels, but I don't think it's a that's it. Like it's just not like nothing. There's some kind of energetic transformation that goes beyond words. And that's really, I can't really put it any other way. It's just some kind of continuation, but it's not anything that I can put into words. I can't conceptualize. There's nothing that I could really say to anybody like that can truly convince them that there is another side, I guess you could say, or another stage in the play, I guess. I don't know how else to explain it. But it's true, man. Once you tap into yourself, it's like, wait, oh, this never ends. This is just a process unfolding. And this might even just be the beginning. I know some people say we've been through millions of incarnations, and who knows if that's true or not. But sometimes I get this weird intuitive sense in me that this is just the start. This is really just like we're just these infantile species. We're just these infantile species that incarnated here. Um, and it's just beginning now. Like this is we're not at the end of the story. Like the story's still being written and it just started. This is just the intro of the story of you and realizing what you truly are. Sometimes I feel that inside, and to me that gives me hope to know that when this body goes away, when there's no more Gary Haskins, there's no more physical vessel here, that there's something else. There's a continuation somehow, not as Gary and not as Dan, but there's some kind of just, I can't, not even something, even just saying there's something else doesn't do it justice. It goes beyond something. It goes beyond nothing. It's just like there isness. I believe something that has guided me that way.
Yeah, definitely. I'll respect that. I would say, like, for me, what I've come into truth is that I believe that we are going to be like you are going to be Gary when you cross over. I'm going to be Dan when I cross over. That's what I feel. And I don't mean in the sense of being attached to your name, because the name is just as you know, the name is just the physical vessel in which you
Like
inhabit these bodies.
our
I
energy.
mean, our soul, our essence,
Yeah.
carries over to the other realm, and we're faced with, we're faced with, first of all, we'll face a lot of the things that we've done on the planet, like what wounds we've worked through, what stage we're at. And I fully believe, like, the truths that I've been coming into is I believe that once we cross over, your condition, your soul condition of where you're currently at when you die, when you cross over, will determine where you go through your law of attraction into the next metaphysical realm,
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm still coming at this deeper truth, but I know that there's, we all know that this place is not physical, we know it's metaphysical. And ancient cultures believed that, like the Mayans, they talked about they called it the 9 waves of consciousness. Like other cultures said there was 12. So other cultures said there was 22 spheres. So I believe, like, when we cross over, and I'm just speaking from my own truth, someone could call us out and call bullshit, but I'm just gonna, all I'll always do is I'll speak from my own truth to where I'm at. But a truth that I've come into is that I believe that when we do cross over, we're going to move to whatever sphere depending on our soul condition,
Yeah. Based upon the
And
actions that we took in
yeah,
this life.
yeah, definitely. And that's a constant evolution, like we've all heard about the hells. Like people call them the hell realms, in the higher realms. The hell realms are not necessarily like the devil and fire, it's like you kind of, it's basically, we all, like, for example, the best way I can describe this is in our lives right now, the situation that we are at in our lives right now is manifesting through your soul condition. So, for example, some people might be saying, like, I'm in a shitty position right now. I've got all this crap going on around my life, but a lot of the time that's actually being affected through your law of attraction. So, because we all know in our lives, once you start kind of evolving yourself, your environment starts positively affecting itself and changing. People will leave you, friends will remove from you, then greater law of attractions will start moving in towards you. So that's just, that law of attraction doesn't change when we cross over. That's
Oh.
continues the same way. So depending on your soul condition when you leave this realm, you will go to the place where, like, you should, where God knows you should be going to, because you can't lie to God. You can lie to others, but you can't lie to God.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, man. It's interesting because that's built into every large belief system and small belief system, is that it's all about our actions and our intentions here. Like there's something important about the way we conduct ourselves, and we're either going to be judged, we're either going to be reincarnated into a different life form. We might go to some kind of heaven realm, some hell realm, but every belief system, it seems to me, has the idea of some kind of judgment. You know, I don't
Yeah,
know if judgment's
definitely.
the right word, but like some kind of what you do here, it's kind of important. Take it kind of seriously. You know, take this whole self-realization thing a little bit more seriously, and you'll thank yourself later. You know, there seems to be some
Sure.
kind of something like we have free will, but it's a test of our own free will. Like even though we are free to do what we want, there's still dharma. Like there's still some kind of way to act. And that seems to be present in all belief systems, whether it's Christianity and the little Judgment Day, or is that Christianity? Is Judgment Day? Yeah, there's a Judgment Day.
Yeah, there's judgment. Every religion has
Yeah,
a
they have.
form of it, you know.
Yeah, so there's some kind of there's some. It seems to be at least some kind of turning into something new based upon what you do here. And yeah, once you tap in, you realize like, oh, they're onto something. It
Yeah, for
seems to
sure.
be that way. They just the law of karma. We all know that. But the law of karma, it's pretty deep. Like it's about acting without this whole thing, the whole gist of it seems to me is like acting without any kind of outcome. I don't want anything from being here. I'm just here, right? That seems to be the goal. I'm just here acting and serving. And obviously easier said than done, but I think that's the goal. If you're here just to be here to serve, to love others, to the best of your ability, and to also love yourself, that's the most important thing. To the best of your ability, there is some kind of fruit, I guess you could say, something that makes it worth it. Like all the sufferings that we have to go through, and the shit and the skeletons in our closet that we kind of have to that we have to clean out here and there. It's worth it. Like there's something about that. You know, this whole spiritual quote unquote work and stuff that we do, it's worth it to become ultimately a better person, to act accordingly to dharma. And then, you know, yes, you further, it doesn't stop, it doesn't end there. Who knows what the next realm is like, the next plane? Who knows what happens there? But it seems to me, right, like this life is a test. There's something like it's a
Yeah.
test or a show. There's something in me that says like, yeah, you can't just sit around and eat Doritos on the couch all day and smoke weed and just watch movies. Like there's something
Yeah.
else going on here that gives you a sense of importance of how we act and treat others.
Well, you can do that.
Yeah, you can. That's the thing. We have free will to do that, and that's the beauty of this life is you can do that. But once you tap in, it's like, oh, I shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Sometimes them Doritos taste nice, so
Yeah, true. It's a balance. It's a balance. Just anything. Yeah, you can't. The Doritos are nice for sure, just not all the time.
yeah. Long as you're not hurting anyone when you eat them.
That's true. Yeah, you might be hurting yourself a little bit.
Yeah, that's a good point. I
Oh man.
can just imagine someone eating Doritos right now listening to this.
Yeah, it's like stop eating them. Okay, I'm not gonna eat those Doritos anymore.
So I'm walking down the road listening to the podcast.
No, eat all the Doritos you want. Just don't attach yourself to the Doritos.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the gist of it, man. Damn.
It's one of them things though. It's like I think as well, like kind of well, like like the human experience is it's one of them things where like it's okay to kind of like make mistakes, in terms of that, because you've got to meet that edge with inside yourself. You've got to sometimes kind of fuck up at times. You've got to like make mistakes to
Of
to
course.
to realize that you've made a mistake. Like you've got to
Hmm.
sometimes eat 5 bags of Doritos to realize that this 5 bag of Doritos isn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
And we're always constantly moving through life in that way where we're treating someone in a bad way, or we're treating ourselves in a bad way, and then we get to a point where we face that and heal it, and then we're like, that wasn't such a good thing, was it? And then normally we move on to the next thing,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got something else we need to face.
Yeah,
So
man.
it's always kind of constantly evolving. I don't think we'll ever get to this point where we're completely healed, like fully like. And well, you can do like that's actually a mistake. You can do, but it's very hard to get to that place, especially in the earth realm.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's like weird that we say it's impossible, yet I still aspire to that. Yeah, that
Yeah, definitely.
ideal.
That's good though. That's what we should be doing. You should be aspiring to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. It's a never-ending test. But as long as yeah, it seems like a learning process. To be human is to learn about this whole thing, because we like we said, we don't know anything. We have no idea. I have no idea who I am and what's going on. I have absolutely no clue what any of this is. So it seems like we were put here to learn. At least for me, I don't know. I can't speak for anybody else, probably for you, but it seems like I'm here to learn about what this whole conundrum is that I'm caught in.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
No, that's I was going to say that's what I've been doing every single day. You know, it's like I'm always learning new truths all the time, and it's you know, at times it can be like really challenging because like I went through I even had an example where I went through like a spiritual attack where like I what happened was you know, I thought I was kind of certain in who I was, like in kind of my beliefs and stuff like that, and then I went through an example where you know, manifestation turned up in the form of a spiritual attack that completely cracked us open to a certain degree to realize that, you know, there's so much more again, and there's so many more layers to what we think and who we think we are, you know, and what's turning up for us. You know, it's not just this kind of like this black and white world where we're just in these physical bodies and we're, you know, I'm Dan or something and I'm working a 9 to 5 job and I'm a bus driver or whatever I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there's more to you than that, you know. You're not just that kind of, you're not just that meat body, you know. You're like there's something deeper underneath that surface, you know, that we're trying to all connect back to, you know.
Mm-hmm. For sure, man. We are the infinity. We are the supreme at all times. Even if you lose track of that, even if you don't really realize that, we're all the infinity. We're also nothing. If that makes sense. We are everything, but we're also nothing at the same time. And we can realize that in this lifetime. It's crazy. It really is. It's one thing to say it, like I am God, I am infinity, but it's another thing to truly sit down with that and just let that enter your body, let that enter your veins, you know, your energetic centers. Feel what that feels like, the temporary nature of this body, what lies beyond. To truly grok that, to grasp that, that's something else. And it's very powerful to be able to tap into that, man. It's liberation for me to know that I'm more than just this suffering vessel. To know that it's all temporary. That's liberation. There's yeah, and there's nothing that I can do about that. You know, there's nothing that I can do about that temporary nature. It's an act of surrender that comes about as well.
Yeah.
It's like I have to surrender to the process. I think a lot of people suffering, I know I'm speaking from personal experience. A lot of my suffering was just resisting the process, resisting this the stuff, the happenings of this body and the idea of my eventual demise, just resisting that idea. But I guess once you start to accept it more and the faultiness of this body and this experience and the temporary nature of it, it's just like, there's weight lifted off your shoulders. Once you can truly get over that, it's like, okay. It doesn't mean the game ends. The game's still going, but there's some kind of like, it's like more peace. Do you think
Yeah.
that this whole spiritual path, quote unquote, has led you to have more peace of mind in your day-to-day life?
Yeah, for sure. I'm going to answer that, but I was going to add something else before because
Go ahead,
when you're
man.
talking about like the temporary nature of like the self, it's interesting because like there is this kind of like this dichotomy that's going on where, you know, we are underneath these meat suits, we are gods, but at the same time, we still have to go to the toilet and take a shit, you know, we still have
Exactly.
to like take a piss. We still
Mm-hmm.
have to eat food, you know. So there is like this kind of like this hilariousness to this nature of reality too. At the same time,
Yeah.
this like sort of dance. And what was the question you said there again? Sorry.
Does that mindset, does that bring you to more peace day to day, to know that we are gods, but also at the same time we are these, you know, we have to take a shit and take
Yeah,
care of our bodies, brush the
yeah.
teeth, do the dishes.
It helps you do them things a lot easier.
Exactly. For sure.
You ever
100%.
seen that you ever seen that Rick and Morty you ever seen Rick and Morty before?
I have. I'm not too much into it, but I have seen
Oh,
it.
you know, there's like a meme like a Rick where Rick's sitting on the toilet and he's like kind of like he's like sitting on his toilet and he's like got toilet paper beside him and stuff. And like the universe is just like all the multicolored universe is just all around him.
Hmm.
And it's kind of like and the meme said like after you take this is what what it's like mid flow of a psychedelic experience when you go and take a shit. And it's kind of like life can sometimes be like that, when you have these deep moments in your life. And what it's kind of like, how it's helped me having this deeper knowledge is like, for example, like right now, the position I'm at in my life now. So a few months ago, like I left me quote unquote 9 to 5 job and I went traveling. And then currently in the position I'm at now, I'm going back again because I'm going back to work in a 9 to 5 job again. But I know that this time when I move into that 9 to 5 job, this time I'm going to have a complete different mindset to it. I'm going to be analyzing like that 9 to 5 job from a much higher mind. I'm not going to be getting like swept away by it. I'm
Hmm.
not going to be able to be controlled in the same way that I was. Not saying that I'm going to be nasty to anyone, but I'm just saying that I'm not going to be swept away by the experience. I'm going to be the observer of that experience. So what I've found is that when you start expanding yourself, you can move into these places that in the past were very challenging. You might, for example, um, you know, a lot of traumas are kind of triggered through family members, So like a lot of us kind of, when we get to a certain age, like maybe 20, 25, 30 age, 30 years old, we move away from the family home, and we go away on our own adventure. We go traveling maybe, or we get a house of our own, have kids, whatever. But the most challenging thing is integrating what you've experienced over here and bringing it back into society, bringing it
Yep.
back into the family home. So I find that one of the biggest things is that we always, as we're going on this journey, one of the biggest things that's helped me is be able to integrate the knowledge into like me family, into me working environment. Because I think that's really important. Because a lot of like spiritual teachers will talk about the goals to get in the cave, and stay in the cave and stuff. But
Hmm.
I've actually found that my goal, what I've found is it's actually you get greater truth if you actually learn the lessons and then bring that back into society.
Yep. That's what it's all about. I believe that. Yeah, you can go as far out as you want, but you always got to come back to the earth realm. And yeah, it's important to strike that balance. I think we talked about that a little bit before. The balance, man. Come
Yeah,
back to earth. You got to stay rooted here. We're still playing this game. We're still in this show. No matter how much how far out you go into the astral realms, no matter how far you go, you have to come back home, the home base, and rebuild here. Rebuild yourself in this physical realm. You still got to play the game. But yeah, like you said, man, like the more that you can traverse the two planes, I guess. There's not two. I'm not saying there's two. There's
yeah,
infinite. But the two mindsets that we're talking about, um, the better you can play this game. Yeah, the better you can kind of go to the 9 to 5 and realize it's all just part of the show too. Don't get sucked into the drama.
yeah,
Don't
for
get
sure.
sucked into the noise of that, and just know it's also part of what it means to be a human, man. It's part of our own suffering.
I've also found as well, like, because I've like in my life, I've been when been walking through my journey of like awakening. It's not the right word, you know what I mean? But it's just like as I've been kind of finding myself, I've actually found sometimes that the guy who works 9 to 5 or something is actually more enlightened than
Hmm.
say someone who I traveled 7 hours to do a podcast with in person. And
Yeah.
I've found that sometimes that some of the people who are actually furthest off the path are the ones the ones who are actually the ones who are truly connected sometimes could just be the normal person. Could be the guy who's working as a binman or whatever. So like it's just interesting how even in the spirituality community we fall into the traps that because he looks a certain way he's more advanced, or he's got this all figured out on this angle from a physical perspective. But actually, sometimes like the guy who's just cleaning or doing whatever he's doing, sometimes is actually more connected.
Yeah, man. I agree 100%. Just another test. I agree. I think it also because like being in the world, you know, as a human being grants you like a certain sense of humility to realize that this is what everybody else is going through. So if you're disconnected from that experience of, I don't know, going to work or having bills to pay or having a family to feed, that grants you humility, man. And you're not the only one. There's billions of people going through that every day. So if you're disconnected from that, yeah, you might be disconnected to be able to actually form a true connection with other people, because it's like, yeah, you got to come back down, find that balance. You have to, in finding that balance, coming back down to earth, uh, it realizes what the earth, like you have to realize what the earth realm entails. And it entails not exactly the nicest stuff. But the difference is, I think, most people, the paradigm is they're stuck in stuck in the ground. The root chakra is a little messed up. They're stuck on Earth. They don't know there's another realm. But at least you know that there's another realm that you can always retreat to find answers and then bring them back here. And yeah, I think with that mindset, I don't know, people start to feel that there's something different about this guy or girl. Like they'll feel that you're different, and they'll be attracted to that. And that's what it's up to us to just be the change in the workplace, or wherever you go during the day. I think it's up to us to all be the change, to have that higher mindset and bring it back into our daily lives as human beings, as these instruments. And from there, that's how we just create a better world. It starts in the day-to-day process. You don't have to go and write a book or do a podcast or make a movie or make music or art or anything like that. We all have our duty here, and it can just start just by being a good person, holding space for people wherever you are.
Sometimes as well, like what I've found is as well as like, what was interesting on my journey is that you actually find out that a lot more people are actually asking these bigger questions than you think, because like I used to test them theories. Like when I was working in my old job, I used to test it where I'd like just drop a little seed in, and like see if someone would kind of like take the bite, kind of thing. And funny enough, a lot of the times you'll actually find that so many people are, when they're in a large group or they're around a certain amount of people, they'll not kind of like interact with that conversation or interact with that energy. But when you get them one-on-one, people open up about certain things. People go like, "Oh, I was thinking that too." When you did this, like I had an example where one of the jobs I used to work in when I first ever started the podcast, like, because I've been doing the podcast now for like 7 years maybe.
Oh.
And in the early days when I first started, I was coming out from that lad culture where it's kind of everyone drinks, goes out on a night out.
Yep.
And I was kind of breaking a lot of cultural norms, like around the place I used to live. And what happened was I actually had an encounter where like a group of guys were like taking the mick out of us. They were like kind of like saying, oh, what you talking about yoga for and stuff like that.
Wait, what? What did you just say?
Talking about yoga. Why are you talking about yoga?
What's yoga? Oh, yoga.
Yoga.
Sorry.
Yoga, sorry. Yeah,
yoga, okay.
That's my accent, sorry.
That's funny.
Not Yoda. Yoda.
Talking about Yoda? That's funny, man. Sorry, go ahead.
No, don't worry. Talking about yoga. And what happened was it was kind of like they were taking the mick out of us. And then it was about 2 days later, like a guy came from nowhere. And he was like, when you were talking about that, talking about like yoga on the podcast, he was like, I've started doing it, and he's like, it started to make my body feel much better. So I think more people are kind of like that. People have like a physical kind of like a cast over them, like because of things that's been put on them because they're scared to speak about certain things. But behind that shell, more and more people are kind of, they do have it within them, to go deeper.
Is that yearning, like we talked about? It's in everybody. It just, for some people, it hits a little sooner, but I think it's going to happen to this whole world. And it seems unrealistic at this point, but I think it's just going to happen. And that's the miracle of the time we're living in. It's this slow unfoldment of us, one by one, yet collectively realizing what we're here for. And that's just to work on ourselves, to work on our healing, and ultimately work on the collective healing. But it all starts within ourselves, and we all have that yearning. I think we do. We all know something's up. Like we're not aligned. We all have it. Some of us are a little more tapped in than others. That's okay, but it's gonna happen to everybody. It's just gonna be like eventually. I think it's just gonna be like it's just the Babylon's just gonna topple, and we're seeing it right now. It's slowly falling. The castle's slowly falling, but I think it's gonna reach a point of no return in the future, and boom, and it's just gonna be like that's the new wavelength. That's the new paradigm. But right now, it's kind of like the weird growing stages. It's like humanity going through puberty. It's a little definitely messy, but we'll get there. I really do. I believe we'll get there, man.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you are tapped in, you'll start realizing how, when you are operating completely from truth, things just manifest really fast. Like you start realizing how when you are really dialed in, things just turn up without any effort. But what you find out is when you like, for example, if you're operating from a position of like not truth and you kind of like, you're doing harm to others, or you're trying to be kind of distruthful, what you actually find it takes a lot longer for you to manifest stuff. So that's why, for example, like that's why the changes on the planet now are happening so fast, because more of us are operating from our truths. But you still have like a certain group of people who are having to work so hard behind the scenes to go, don't look behind here, don't look
Yeah.
here. While they're closing one curtain, six other curtains are going like bursting open,
Hmm.
because they've got to work so hard to keep like to try and keep the whole theater going.
Yep.
But the more that you operate from truth, you don't have to do that. You just find that manifestation turns up fast for you.
Exactly, man. Imagine a whole population, a whole species of humanity on that wavelength. I don't know. It'd be a totally different world. The physical world would probably look the same. It would probably look like an alien world if we're all on that wavelength. But I think the change would happen so quick, and I think it is. It's going to happen so quick, and it's just going to transform right before our very eyes. And like I said, it's going to be a little messy at first
Yeah,
because,
definitely.
like you said, there's the forces behind the scenes that are trying to keep the status quo. But nah, the cat's out of the bag. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, I think the world will. I think that what I feel it's going to happen is, and I might be wrong with this, but I feel there's going to be a split. I feel like we're going to get to a point where you're going to have a certain group of people who are going to be more in aligned with spirituality, and then you're going to have people who are so embedded within the matrix that they've got chips in their head, and
Hmm.
I think
Yep.
we're starting to see that emerging point now, especially with everything that's gone on in the world over the last couple of years. We're starting to see that split. But I do feel that a lot of us are getting no, a lot of us now can no longer sit on the fence, because if you sit on the fence for too long, you're just going to get dragged one way or the other. You
Mm.
have to kind of make that decision in your own life. What way do you want to go?
Yeah. I know what I'm choosing.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm
Yeah,
choosing freedom, man.
yeah. I've already chose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, man. Well, you know what? I think we can probably wrap it up at that point. I think that's
Yeah,
that's
cool.
a. It's all up to us to make the choice. You
Love
know.
that.
You have any last words? Anything you want to get off your chest?
Yeah, nothing. I think everything was said what needed to be said.
I agree, man. Well, yeah. Thanks for coming on here. Thanks for anybody that listened. This was a wonderful talk. Definitely like to stay in touch, talk again. But yeah, man. Namaste. Peace out.
Peace, peace and love.